The night in Ouagadougou was thick with silence, broken only by the distant hum of motorcycles and the occasional bark of a stray dog. Inside the presidential compound, Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat in his office, eyes fixed on a classified report. His jaw tightened. The intelligence was clear. There was another man behind the coup attempt, a shadow figure who had orchestrated chaos from the dark. For weeks, whispers filled the air. A traitor, not far from power, feeding betrayal into the veins of the nation. Traoré leaned back in his chair, the weight of his people pressing heavily on his shoulders. "If we do not catch him now," he said to his most trusted aide, "he will come back stronger. Burkina Faso cannot afford another snake hiding in the tall grass." The operation began before dawn. Soldiers dressed in black moved like shadows across the city, sealing exits, blocking roads, and quietly surrounding a villa on the outskirts. The man inside was no ordinary traitor. He was once a friend, a general who had sworn loyalty only to sell his oath for foreign promises. When the door was forced open, the general stood frozen in shock. His face, half lit by the flicker of a candle, betrayed fear he could no longer hide. Traoré himself stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. The room thickened with tension as the two men locked eyes, one betrayed, the other exposed. "You," Traoré said, voice steady as steel, "have chosen gold over blood, lies over honor, and greed over your homeland. Do you know what that makes you?" The general tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. Soldiers gripped their rifles tighter, waiting. Traoré moved closer, his eyes burning with both rage and sorrow. "It makes you a slave, not just to those who bought you, but to your own cowardice." The silence shattered as the traitor was dragged to his knees. Outside, the city was waking, unaware that its fate had just shifted. With the capture of the second man behind the coup, a storm that could have torn Burkina Faso apart was broken before it began. As dawn's light spilled across the horizon, Traoré stepped outside, breathing deeply. He knew the struggle was far from over. The battle for Africa's future was not against one man or one coup. It was against an entire system of shadows. But for now, the people could sleep knowing their captain had struck the serpent's head before it could strike again. And in the stillness of that morning, one truth became clear. Betrayal may hide in the dark, but justice never sleeps. The captured general was led through the dim corridors of the compound, his wrists bound, his once proud stride reduced to a stumbling shuffle. Soldiers who had once saluted him now looked away in contempt. The betrayal cut deeper than a knife. It was not just the man who had fallen, but the trust of brothers in arms that he had shattered. Traoré followed behind, his footsteps heavy but unhesitant. Every decision he made carried the weight of a nation, and this one was no different. He thought of the mothers who prayed for peace, the children who went to bed hungry, the farmers who fought against a land that gave little. For them, there was no room for treachery. Inside the interrogation chamber, the general sat under a single hanging bulb, sweat dripping down his brow despite the cool air. His eyes darted around, searching for an escape that did not exist. Traoré stood opposite him, silent, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. "You think you were clever," Traoré finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying the sting of thunder. "Moving in shadows, whispering to foreigners, selling pieces of your soul for promises they would never keep. Did you believe they would make you a king?" The general's lips trembled. "I did it for stability, for order. You are young, impulsive. They said—" "They said what?" Traoré cut him off, slamming his fist on the table. The bulb swayed, casting shifting shadows across the room. "That Burkina Faso needs chains? That Africa must always kneel? That our destiny is written by men who do not speak our language? Who do not bleed when we bleed?" The general flinched, his shoulders curling inward. For the first time, the mask of authority he had worn for years cracked, revealing the coward underneath. "You disappoint me," Traoré whispered, softer now, almost mournful. "I once believed you stood for this soil, for these people, but you sold them for 30 pieces of silver. And when history speaks your name, it will not call you a leader. It will call you a traitor." The general lowered his head, unable to meet his captain's gaze. A single tear slid down his cheek, not of regret, but of fear. He knew what justice meant in this land. Outside, crowds had begun to gather. News traveled fast in Ouagadougou, and word of the capture was spreading like wildfire. People filled the streets, waving flags, chanting the captain's name. To them, this was not just the fall of one man. It was proof that no shadow, no foreign-backed scheme could destroy their unity. Traoré stepped onto the balcony overlooking the masses. Their cheers thundered through the air, their voices rising as one. He raised his hand, and silence fell like a sudden storm. "My brothers and sisters," he said, voice carrying across the square, "a snake has been caught, but do not mistake this victory as the end of our struggle. The true enemy hides not in one man, but in the chains they try to place on all of us. We will not kneel. We will not sell our honor. As long as I breathe, this land will belong to its people, and no one else." The crowd erupted, voices uniting in a roar that shook the earth. In that moment, hope burned brighter than fear, and the young captain knew that even in the darkest night, his people would follow him toward the dawn. Inside, the traitor listened from his chair, broken and silent. His name would fade into shame, but Traoré's resolve would echo through the continent. Betrayal may come from within, but loyalty, once awakened, can move mountains.